So thanks everyone for joining us today. Probably your lunch hour for most folks. Today is our info session for elevated leadership. My name is Liz Tang. I use the pronouns she, her, and I am the education coordinator for IntegralOrg. So I'll just be around monitoring the chat, doing any sort of tech support, and a little bit of hosting. So without further ado, at IntegralOrg, we like to acknowledge that what we call Alberta is the traditional and ancestral territory of many peoples presently subject to Treaties 4, 6, 7, 8, and 10, namely the Blackfoot Confederacy, the Kainai, Piikani, Siksika, the Cree, Dene, Saulteaux, Nakota Sioux, Stoney Nakoda, and the Tsuut'ina Nation, and the Métis people of Alberta. This includes the Métis settlements in the 6 regions of the Métis Nation of Alberta within the historical Northwest Métis homeland. And for me personally, reconciliation is not just about stepping aside and uplifting Indigenous voices, but it's about recognizing the ways in which we can learn from Indigenous ideology and incorporate some of their teachings into our lives and our work. And so I do know that the Indigenous diaspora is very diverse, but commonly Indigenous leaders are expert at deeply valuing community and benefiting the whole and exemplifying that sort of collaborative consensus building process. So there's so much value in considering the many ways to leadership, and I welcome you all to reflect on these thoughts alongside myself as we go through today's session. And with that, I'm very happy to introduce today's facilitators. I gotta find them to spotlight them. First, we have Leslie Tamagi, who has more than 25 years experience as CEO of diverse organizations and understands firsthand the complex challenges facing management, staff, boards, and in the nonprofit sector. And we also have Mike Grogan. There we go. He is the president and CEO of IntegralOrg, and he's worked in the nonprofit sector for over 25 years and is recognized for his ability to inspire nonprofit organizations to tackle complex issues and create sustainable solutions to organizational and community issues. And so I just wanted to hand it over to our facilitators to share why they feel today's topic is important to them. First, let's start with Leslie and then we'll go to Mike. So, Leslie, why is developing nonprofit leadership important to you?
Thanks, Liz, and welcome everybody. Wonderful to have you join us today. I'm very passionate about opportunities for leadership development, and I think that's because, I had the real benefit of being involved in a program that is similar to this in the past, and it was a program for leaders in the nonprofit sector, designed, for leaders by leaders in the nonprofit sector, and address some of the unique challenges and issues that we faced. And it was a small cohort model. I participated in this over 10 years ago, and I'm still very close with the majority of the people I went through the experience with. We've all gone through some significant ups and downs in our careers and had challenges, but we've reached out to each other during our journeys of leadership, and I've found it to be a very supportive and valuable environment in which to continue on my leadership journey. So I'm just very pumped about this opportunity and really excited that you are considering joining us, because I think it really will have, I hope for you as it has had for me, just kind of a huge lifelong impact. And Mike.
Thank you, Leslie, and welcome to you all. So glad you're joining us today and considering joining this offering. It's a new area of work for IntegralOrg, and we're super excited about where this may take us. So, the idea of why leadership is important to me, I think, this is a question that I've sort of thought about just a lot, certainly in the last few months as we've moved into this piece of work, and it always seems to be a different answer every time I think about it. And that's what I think probably is the uniqueness about when you think about leadership. There's a million different ways to, define leadership. There's all kinds of books, all kinds of programs out there. We're trying not to call this a program because that's not our mindset here. But the idea that there is never-ending ways, that it really is a bunch of different, tools and mindsets and experiences and situational pieces that inform this thing we call leadership that never ends. And I think that is why it's so intriguing to me that there are no experts in leadership, and there's no one who's got it all nailed. And that's what makes it quite a remarkable body of work to enter into and to think about. And I've gone through, from organizational pieces to leading other pieces in the backcountry to my master's in leadership. And those are all pieces of the equation. And I to be able to continue that journey. So as much as this is something that we're doing, for the sector, is really what we're doing with this sector. This will inform our own leadership too. And that's the exciting part, because I think one of the things that leadership really is, and it's the ultimate team game. Sometimes you have this view of leadership being kind of the heroic leader who leads an organization. And I don't think that's ever really true. It may look that way, and people may try to make themselves look that way, but leadership is really all about who we are together with each other. And that's why I think this piece of work we're putting out here, I'm working really hard not to call it a program, is very much for anybody. And so this is a part of what we do at IntegralOrg. So IntegralOrg, when we sort of think about why this fits for us, again, this is a newer area of work. We've been very fortunate to have a core funder come on board and say they'd like to subsidize this pilot program and see where this takes us. So, but our job is to help charities and nonprofits, thrive and flourish and achieve your visions. And there's a lot of ways we do that. We do that every day on kind of the strategic and legal and governance pieces. But one of the probably the biggest linchpin, I think the piece that's missing in this sector, is how do you develop good leaders? We think about the thousands of organizations are out there, and a lot of them doing very, very good work. But how do you take time to sort of step back and to build this capacity, to build these competencies? And that's what I think this opportunity is for us to slow down. And probably one of the hardest things for leaders is to slow down. I just interviewed somebody for this elevated leadership today, and he talked about how leadership is really about putting out fires, and a lot of times it is. But it's not just that. And if all we do is put out fires and make decisions really quickly, I think we're missing how to bring ourselves and how to bring that fuller piece of leadership to our organizations, to our communities, and to the people we serve. So this is very much what we want to do. We want to understand, what leadership is for ourselves, what it is for you, what is it for organizations, and what it looks like in community. And so again, we thank you for exploring this opportunity with us. We're going to talk today a bit about who this is for. There's a lot of ways to define leadership, and who is we think this is designed for, and what that might look like for yourself. Give you a sense of what it looks like, piece by piece, what those days might look like, and just how it'll sort of, what we think the return is, and what the process, the application process, which will be as we move towards some deadlines here. There's some deadlines from the project start date that some people want to walk you through, but there's some things that make this program accessible with the job grant that we need to move fairly quickly on. So our encouragement will be to you to start working if you can do that. Okay. To get us started, though, what we probably want to talk to is a bit about what you think of leadership is. We're going to use a thing called a Slido. So if you haven't used Slido, it's pretty painless. If you have a phone, you can just sort of scan the QR code there. Or if you want to visit slido.com and enter the number down at the bottom, that's 1690578. It will take you to a little screen. It'll have two pieces, one a Q&A and one polls, I believe. We want to click on polls for this because that's going to give you a chance to enter this one word or trait. And once you do that, it's going to pop up. So what is the one skill or trait or characteristic that you most admire in a leader? We'll give you a couple minutes or a minute or so to populate that, and then we'll see what we come up with here. Do my own right now. There we go. All right, just giving a few seconds here for things to pop up. Hidden some of these babies from, there we go. Transparency, I think the big ones are the bigger, maybe ones that are multiple ones on. I'm not quite sure how that works. Sometimes on these little things, ones that are duplicate get a bit bigger. Wonderful thing. And as you sort of think through these things, there's a whole bunch of ways to think about this. These kind of probably fall in that vein of something that have that idea of integrity, or somebody that you believe in, that they are courageous, they got confidence, they got passion. Yeah. To lead, you need to have passion. How that's expressed may be different for all of us. Sometimes the way we express the way we lead looks very different from person to person, probably every person. Humility, I think that's a great one. It's one that you don't probably do a great job without recognizing your own limitations and your own areas to grow. Empathy, how we treat others and how we are with others. Honesty, inspirational. All kinds of great stuff. You can populate this list all day and they'd be great answers because they're your answers. And leadership is very much, subjective. It's one of those things like art. If we recognize it when you see it, and you know when it's not there. And so again, we do thank you for taking the chance to explore this. I'll just turn it back over to Leslie to sort of walk us through what this whole thing looks like. Leslie.
Great, thank you, Mike. So interesting that empathy came up there. I've been doing quite a bit of reading lately, and empathy seems to be coming up more and more in working with intergenerational leaders, and the importance now of people wanting empathy in their leader. That's probably one of the number one characteristics that's coming up in some of the research that's happening out there these days. So interesting to see how that is starting to shift a little bit. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about the cohort and what to expect. But I will just reiterate Mike's point to start. This is not a canned program. There is not a set curriculum. There is a framework that we have built that will touch on a variety of different areas, and I'll walk you through that in just a minute. But it's 6 full days of learning offered over 6 months, so basically 1 day a month. And then there's a follow-up session afterwards, again, a full day, and that's kind of to come back together as a cohort and see how you're doing in terms of, continuing to implement the things that, really that resonated with you as you went through the cohort. So the content is responsive. It will be flexible to what's happening in your world in real time. And so it doesn't use kind of case studies or hypotheticals. The idea is you are all facing issues and challenges, and that we will talk about real things. And the cohort model is really an important piece. So this is developing strong, trusting relationships with peers in the nonprofit sector. And it's about learning from each other. We always use the term the wisdom in the room. It's not experts coming in and telling you how to be a leader. It's you uncovering and learning about yourself and what your current environment is and how to adapt to it. So it is a bit unique in that, as I said, it's not a leadership development course. Here, take this course, come with us for a couple of days, and then you go back to your environment and nothing really has changed. This approach will challenge you to be responsive to your own environment. And as I said, you're addressing things in real time. So who's it for? Well, we're really targeting mid to senior level people. We want people in the cohort who have some decision-making authority and who have a team of people that they're working with. It doesn't have to be a large team that you're responsible for. You do need the support of your supervisor or potentially your board. And that's one of the requirements for the funding that you can be eligible for. It's really important that you attend all sessions. So commit to the 6th plus the 7th follow-up session, and the dates are set. We have had questions about whether I can attend remotely, and unfortunately, that's not a possibility. This is an in-person event. They will be held in Calgary in a couple different locations, but it's really important that people are there. And if you miss a session, if you think about it, you're missing kind of a 1/6 of the whole experience. And so, that's a real challenge if people are in and out. So we really ask people to commit. That you're committed to bringing an attitude of collaboration and openness. And this is, again, about learning from each other. And so that requires a willingness to share both the good and bad of what's happening in your lives, of what you're experiencing, and being open to hearing from the diversity of people around the table. And usually, while people might come from very different kinds of organizations, there's usually a lot in common in terms of what are some of the things that people are facing and they want to spend some time on. And then, as I said, committed to full participation in all events. One of the things that people present as probably the biggest barrier is I'm just too busy to commit. And I would really encourage you to think about that. That's certainly how I felt when I initially signed up for the opportunity I was involved with. But I can't stress enough the benefit of taking yourself out of your day-to-day environment and into an environment where you are free to think and just problem solve and spend some time. We are so busy, as Mike said, putting out fires these days. We're constantly barraged with information, whether that's email or text or phone calls or interruptions is it's very rare we just get time to be still and reflect. And that's one of the real benefits, I think, of this is it gives you that framework where you can really think about some things and start to work towards, so what am I going to do about it? So that's pretty unique. And in terms of the content itself, we have structured it around kind of these 3 domains of leadership. So about, yourself as a leader within your organization, whether that's you as executive director or maybe you have a manager with a team around you, and then also your role in the broader community. We really believe that it's important that we're not just creating leaders for our own organizations, but for the sector as a whole. Just kind of walking through what the modules look like. And again, this is a framework, so there is not set, we're going to do this at 10 o'clock and this at 10:30, but we do have a sense of what we'd like to focus on. So the first session is really about getting to know each other, starting those trust relationships, making sure everyone has a really good understanding, developing commonality, thinking about how we're going to show up and things like confidentiality. And then starting to really reflect about your own personal leadership journey and what is the areas that you want to work on areas that you think you could really benefit from continuing to strengthen. Then we'll dig in deeper to yourself as a leader. And, Peter Drucker says you can't manage other people unless you can manage yourself first. And so really trying to raise our self-awareness of how we present as leaders and what are some of the things that we might want to work on and how do we really leverage our strengths. So we'll be looking at doing some form of personal assessment with that. And again, working on furthering your leadership development plan that you will create yourself. Then we move into kind of the team concept. And as Mike said, leadership is about team. It's about leading people. It's not about just yourself. So, how does that unfold within your work environment? How do you create a high-performing team? How do you address some of the issues that you might be facing within your team? So how do you really create, that powerful group that you are part of? And we will spend some time talking in general about some of the ups and downs of leading organizations. And sustainability is certainly a big issue for most people right now, is how you create a sustainable organization that's able to adapt and respond to whatever is being thrown at us in the environment, because things are changing very rapidly these days. And then as we move on to, how do you present as a leader in the broader community? And this starts to look at things like strategic partnerships and collaborations, government relations. How do you have impact and influence beyond your organization? And then as kind of a wrap up, how do you actually make sure you continue on your leadership journey so that, it's not a one and done, you don't just show up and you're finished. How do you keep thinking about this? How do you continue to move forward? So that's kind of the summary, but as I said, it really does depend on who's in the group, because we will continue to adapt what we spend our time on based on what's most important for the participants. And, we will decide these things as a group, and we will unpack this together. So in terms of what you can expect as a return on investment from you investing your time and energies in this, because it is a commitment that you would be investing, I would really hope that you would be able to embody your strengths as a leader and leverage those, that you would, continue to innovate and collaborate and practice in real time. And so you are accountable to the group. And so if we spend time on an issue that you presented, people are going to want to know next time we get together. So what happened? How did that go? Did you try any of the strategies we suggested? Again, spacing them out a month apart, that does allow you some time to actually try to implement some of the things that you've been thinking about and, see how it worked out. As opposed to you go to a 2-day leadership course and then you go back to work. So this is designed intentionally so that you've got time to really reflect and implement and evaluate whatever changes you're trying to do. And then, really starting to build those relationships with peers that we will hope will last far beyond the cohort. We will be very intentional about supporting this relationship development. And at the end, you will have a personal leadership plan, identifying the areas, maybe the people that you need to bring into your life to support you on this plan, the areas that you want to focus on, and some of the strategies about how you want to continue your leadership journey, which of course never really ends. For your organization, the return on investment, because they are investing in you as a participant to go, and there is a cost involved, and of course time. You should come out as a stronger, more flexible leader who can inspire others with a shared vision and mission, contribute to a thriving workplace culture. We'll spend quite a bit of time talking about the importance of culture, and understanding how to nurture impactful teams, and then navigating change within your organization, but also within the broader sector, and coming out with stronger relationships with other people working in the sector. So it's important that we consider what the potential impact is for your organization, because as I said, we are asking your organization to make an investment as well. So I'd like to turn it over to Sandeep now. She's going to talk a little bit more in detail about the investment itself and the process.
Thanks, Leslie. Hello, everyone. My name is Sandeep, and I am the coordinator of leadership development at IntegralOrg. I will be providing an overview of your investment and the application process so you know what to expect. I'll start by acknowledging that Elevated Leadership is subsidized by a very generous funder who is supporting half of the overall initiative, which has allowed us to offer a more accessible price point to you all. So your investment for Elevated Leadership is $2,995. This learning opportunity is eligible for the Canada-Alberta Job Grant, which covers 2/3 of the cost. So if you are approved for the grant, your final investment is just under $1,000. If this is still a barrier, please do reach out to us and we will see if there is anything more that we can do to support you with this. So applications for Elevated Leadership will remain open until the end of September, and you're welcome to apply at any time. However, for those of you who are interested in the Canada-Alberta Job Grant, there are some important dates to note. Please be aware that the job grant must be completed by your employer, so therefore you will need the support of your direct supervisor to apply. At this stage, the job grant application takes importance as the recommended deadline for the application is next Wednesday, September 20th. It's in a week's time from now. At the same time, we welcome your application to Elevated Leadership via our website so that we can get to know you better. This step is necessary as it'll result in an agreement letter, which officially will confirm your enrollment in the offering. So your application is not complete without doing both parts. I will now walk through the Canada-Alberta Job Grant. So please note there is a detailed Canada-Alberta Job Grant applicant guide, which you're encouraged to read through. We are not the representatives of this grant, so it's important that you capture the details directly from their guide. This is a general overview, just so you know what to expect. The job grant has a 30-day turnaround time, so we suggest that you have your application in before, but no later than September 20th, so that you know if you're approved by October 20th. Once you receive approval, full payment is due to IntegralOrg by October 27th. And so these indicated dates will ensure that you have grant approval and payment completed prior to the start of Elevated Leadership on November 1st. The Canada-Alberta Job Grant highlights the following as important to note. The job grant must be signed and submitted by your employer, which requires a My Alberta digital ID. So we have some folks who have already gone through this process, and they've said it's taken about 10 to 15 minutes once you get started. So it's not a strenuous process, but it is important that you do get started. Once your employer submits the application on your behalf, you will receive an email to consent to the application, and you must provide consent to the application in order for it to move forward. So please keep an eye out for that in your inboxes. To avoid any delays to your application or any hiccups along the way, the job grant mentions to provide an identifiable email address on the application. So that means that your name must be in your email handle. All of this information is available on their job grant applicant guide, which will send a link to you in the attachments you'll receive after the session. You'll also receive more information about the reimbursement process. There are a couple different ways that that can happen, and we will support you with that process when it is time for that. Okay. So as you begin the job grant process, at the same time, we recommend that you complete the Elevated Leadership application on our website. This application provides additional details about you and your leadership journey. Once we receive your application, we will connect with you to make sure that Elevated Leadership is right for you, and you will be offered an agreement letter, which will confirm your enrollment. We are suggesting that you complete the job grant application first because of the tight turnaround time. However, the application to Elevated Leadership itself is your opportunity to share details about yourself, your organization, and how we can best support you on your leadership journey. So we invite you to take some time to reflect as you complete this part of the process. This offering is about meeting you and your organization's needs, and that begins by understanding what is important to you. Okay, so that is the application overview. If you have any questions at this time, please feel free to drop them in the chat and we'll do our best to address them. We're also open to chatting over the phone or meeting in person. In fact, we welcome the opportunity, so please do not hesitate to reach out to us at all. A large part of this learning experience is building relationships with facilitators and peers, and we welcome the chance to get to know each of you better. My details should be on the screen now. You can reach me at leadership@integralorg.ca or at 587-323-4529. And yeah, I look forward to hearing from you and connecting further. If there's no questions in the chat, Liz, I guess I will circle back to Mike to wrap up today's session.
Yep, no questions so far.
That probably just means you did a great job of explaining everything. It could be possibly no questions lingering. That's all that means. Well, thank you, Leslie. Thank you, Sue. Thank you, Liz. Just again, just to reiterate a couple of things. One is that if you've shown up today, there is a seed planted, and our encouragement to you is to nurture that seed. And if it's for moving forth an application, the job grant, fantastic. You want to chat about things. If there are barriers to getting into it financially, let us know, and let's have a conversation with you. And those conversations, who knows where they're going to lead. But thank you for planting that seed and joining us today. I think it speaks well of people who explore opportunities to say, how can this grow our own leadership, our own organizations? And so our hope is to encourage you in that journey. Time's ticking. So, and even though it's November 1st is the kickoff date, the Canada Job Grant drives some timelines that are tighter for us. So if you do want to start to move forward, it's not an onerous process to apply to do the job grant. If it changes, we can always adjust, but better to err on the side of getting things started and not, we don't always put out fires. Sometimes when we lead, we sort of defer fires or we let them smolder for a while. This is one you probably want to put out in the next week or so if you can. That'd be great for us. Again, if there are questions along the way, do reach out to us. Talk to Sandeep. Happy to engage in any way we can. If there's others in your world, your organization, the people you bump up against in the sector, you think, hey, this would be great. Or maybe you want to bring a buddy. Fantastic. Let's do that. So get the word out. We'd appreciate that. And again, just thank you for being here. And we hope you join us. We wonder, we're so excited about this cohort. Every time we sit down with somebody who's joining us, and it just, you see this puzzle being put together. And as much as this is, it's as much for us as it is for you in many ways. So we're very excited about journeying with you and to see what the future holds. All right, with that, I shall let you go and back to work, I guess it is. So have a great afternoon and hope to see you soon.